Hello everybody, welcome back to the Chico MMA channel, and in this video I'm going to be going over the UFC 284 card, Makhachev versus Volkanovski, the super fight. This is going to be a review of the entire card from the prelims to the main event. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. We're going to be starting from the bottom, going all the way to the top, starting at Zubaira Tukhugov versus Elves Brenner. Elves Brenner was able to take the win by split decision, which was very controversial in a lot of people's eyes. I can't really talk about this fight. I didn't see it. In fact, the first fight I saw of the night was the Loma Lukbanmi fight. So I can't say much about these two fights. All I can say is that a lot of people did think that Tukhugov got robbed in this fight. And I'm kind of hoping that that's the case because I did have my bet on Tukhugov. And even if he lost, at least it was a robbery loss. So I know that, like, in spirit, in the court of public opinion, I should have gotten my points. But, that's just me. We're going to move on to Shane Young versus Blake Bilder. Blake Bilder won the fight by unanimous decision after 3 rounds. Shane Young, I think, is now on a 3-fight losing streak, if I got that correctly. Blake Bilder takes the win, and I did have him winning by a submission in the 3rd round. I was going to put him at win by unanimous decision, but I thought I had too many decisions, so I put him by submission in the 3rd round instead. Should have got it by decision because I would have gotten that perfect pick, but we move on to Loma Lukbanmi versus Elise Reed. This is the first fight I saw the night. Loma Lukbanmi was able to get it done by a submission in the 2nd round. I had Elise Reed winning the 1st round going into that fight, or while that fight was happening, I mean. But Lukbanmi was able to sink in a very nice submission, a very sneaky one as well, in the 2nd round. I had her winning by decision, but she ended up taking it by submission instead. So that's pretty cool. And the featured early prelim was Jack Jenkins versus Don Shainis. Don Shainis, coming off of a loss to Sadiq Youssef on short notice, which brought him into the promotion, went on to fight Jack Jenkins, who beat him by unanimous decision. This is a very competitive fight, and this is one of the more entertaining fights in my opinion. There were a few nut shots in this fight. I'm pretty sure this was one of the fights that had a lot of nut shots. And nonetheless, Jack Jenkins was able to get it done by unanimous decision. I had him winning by a 3rd round TKO, something standing up. But a win is a win, and I picked the right guy, so it's all good. We're going to move on to the prelims. The first one was Jamie Mullarkey versus Francisco Prado. Jamie Mullarkey won by unanimous decision, and I put my I put my faith into the debuting guy, the new guy, and it just didn't work out for me. I had Prado winning by 2nd round finish. I was taking that gamble, taking that bet, but Jamie Mullarkey showed why he is one of the top guys at lightweight right now, and was able to win by decision. Wasn't in much trouble throughout that fight. Won every round clearly, decisively, and called out Paddy Pimblett right afterwards. So I think that's a super fun fight, honestly. There's been talks about Paddy Pimblett versus Drew Dober, which I don't think that's the right fight to make. I don't think the UFC would want to feed Paddy Pimblett to Drew Dober. I feel like Drew Dober would win that fight way too easily. He's just better everywhere. I feel like maybe Pimblett takes him on the ground. Maybe that's one advantage Pimblett has, but other than that, that's really it. I feel like if you want to give Paddy Pimblett a better, more winnable fight for him, it might be Jamie Mullarkey. I think that's the better fight to make. But we're going to move on to Josh Kulabau versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. Way more nut shots in this fight. In fact, there was a very powerful nut shot. I think this nut shot was one of those where it was the nut shot that I've seen that a guy had to take the most time to recover. Josh Kulabau was very, very hurt by this nut shot, and it showed. It was a very powerful shot, and that 1st round was not a very good round for Kulabau, but he was able to take it by submission in the 2nd round. So I was very happy for that, especially because I had my pick on him. Where'd he go? He's up here. Okay. Did I go by Clayton Rodriguez? I did. I went by Clayton Rodriguez. Okay, I'll talk about it after. But I had Kulabau winning by decision, but he was able to take it by a finish, so that's good too. No issues there. Clayton Rodriguez versus Shannon Ross. I accidentally skipped over this one. Clayton Rodriguez effortlessly took the win by 1st round knockout, and it was in less than a minute. Clayton Rodriguez really just went in there and made quick work of Shannon Ross. I mean, it was so impressive to me how quickly and flawlessly and easily this was done by Clayton Rodriguez. And yeah, I think we've got a new guy at flyweight, honestly. This has got to be a guy that people got to look out for. This was under a minute that he did this, so very impressive stuff there. I had him winning by decision, but it seemed that he definitely took revenge on Shannon Ross for taking his weight miss money, his 20% of his purse. And yeah, less than a minute is crazy. Pretty crazy. But we're going to move on to the featured prelim. Tyson Pedro versus Modestas Bukauskas. I think this fight surprised me the most. I think this fight was the one that surprised me the most. And it's not because of the fight itself. It's really because of just who won. I did not give Modestas Bukauskas a chance to win this fight. I'm not going to lie, though. While watching it, I did kind of hope, like, Modestas, I hope he does something that is good enough that the UFC doesn't cut him. And, well, he did that. And he did that by winning the whole fight. He won pretty much every round. There's an argument to be made that he won every round. I think I had him winning every round, but the first round I wasn't sure about. But yeah, there's no doubt about it that Modestas Bukauskas won that fight. He just looked way better and kind of exposed Tyson Pedro in that fight. I don't know. Tyson Pedro just did not look very good. A lot of people were expecting that first round finish, including myself. You know, featured prelim, hometown, Tyson Pedro. He already did his last two fights in that same way. I thought, hey, there can't be any other way. But Modestas Bukauskas proved me wrong. The Baltic Gladiator from Lithuania. And it's going to be interesting to see where he goes next, because now he's got to be a name that people are starting to recognize at light heavyweight for beating Tyson Pedro in his first fight back from the UFC into the UFC. So those are the prelims. We're going to move on to the main card. This was the $80 fights. First off, an incredible fight between Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield. If it weren't for the main event, this fight would likely be the fight of the night, because oh my god, I mean, I was on the edge of my seat for this one. Jimmy Crute almost gets knocked out in the first round after dominating Alonzo Menifield, and after that, it was, you know, the round ends, and then going into the second round, it was just super tense, but Alonzo Menifield did win that round, and he did it decisively. So it was all down to the third round. Who can win this third round? You know, the first round, it could have, you know, the judges could have swayed it to one side or the other. So it really all just came down to what happened in the third round. And it did, because Alonzo Menifield grabbed the fence, which prevented a takedown, and got a point taken off. That referee did not play around, and it ended up being a 29-27 for one judge for Jimmy Crute, and then 28-28, 28-28 from two judges, which ended up making this fight a majority draw. But yeah, not upset at the draw at all. This was a super fun fight. It's just kind of sad that, you know, Alonzo Menifield did kind of win this fight. It was very much a split decision win for Alonzo Menifield in theory. But yeah, and looking at the rankings on Tuesday yesterday, it seems that Alonzo Menifield did not enter them. So he's going to need to be another ranked guy at light heavyweight. But this fight was super impressive fight. Jimmy Crute, his chin is not the same since that Jamal Hill fight, I don't think. You know, maybe it's just the power punches of Alonzo Menifield. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where both of these guys go next in their careers. I'm definitely going to be watching their careers closely because they're very fun. But we're going to move on to Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. This is the fight, the matchup that got a lot of shit from fans. A lot of people were shitting on Parker Porter for being on an $80 pay-per-view. And did the fans, you know, they got their money's worth at least, because Justin Tafa knocked him out in a minute. Just over a minute. And it was very brutal knockout. I mean, you can't say you weren't expecting it. You know, this is what I had put my bet on, and I got my perfect pick. Justin Tafa gave me my perfect pick, and I'm super happy about that. Very sad to see Parker Porter get knocked out that badly. Don't think he's going to get cut from the roster, because we probably would have seen something about that if he was planning on getting cut. He should have been cut already. So I think he's maybe got one more fight, and if it's a loss, he'll get cut. If it's a win, he may or may not get cut. Who knows? But all we know is that Justin Tafa, the Australians, got a heavyweight. I forgot to say who I thought won. Alonzo Menifield, Jimmy Crute. Had Jimmy Crute winning by a knockout in the first round. Imagine how crazy, you know. What a crazy pick by me. But I thought Crute was going to catch Menifield lacking, you know, catch him with something that Menifield ran into. I already talked about this in my predictions video if you want to check that out. But yeah, that's not what happened at all. And it ended up being a draw. So let's hope Alonzo Menifield gets some justice and gets another ranked opponent. He should not take another unranked opponent. He deserves a ranked spot if he wants to get back up there, because he should be up there already. So my advice to Alonzo Menifield, take a ranked opponent. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be Azamat. It could be Dustin Jacoby. You know, just, you know, some of the lower ranked guys at least. I don't know. Just if they're ranked, take it. If they're not, don't take it. But we're going to move on to another very impressive win. Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown. Jack Della Maddalena, first round submission. Should have been a knockout, but it was a submission. And it garnered him the performance of the night bonus, 1 of 2. And done in just under 3 minutes, just over 2 minutes. And he got the knockdown. He did the ground and pound. It looked like the referee was going to stop it and give Jack Della Maddalena that knockout win. But Jack Della Maddalena, he acted very quickly, synced in that rear naked choke very quickly, got the win very quickly, and everything about this fight was just, you know, just kind of a one and done for Jack Della Maddalena. A lot of people put their bets on Randy Brown to win this one. And I know the odds don't show it, but a lot of professional fighters, a lot of the odds makers, a lot of the MMA channels, a lot of people on social media were giving this fight to Randy Brown. Obviously, they didn't have the balls to put money on it. But Della Maddalena, he took that win. And, you know, I had Della Maddalena winning by second round knockout. First of all, I wasn't expecting first round, but I definitely wasn't expecting a submission either. That's the craziest part about this. Randy Brown is good. Randy Brown is much better than any of the guys Della Maddalena has fought in his past 3 fights, but he just got it done the same way. So I don't know. It's pretty crazy how he was able to do all that. He showed crazy levels in this fight, and he's now ranked. Li Jingliang was knocked off the rankings. He was number 15. He got knocked off. They put Jack Della Maddalena at number 14. Very smart how they did that. I'll talk about it in Chico Weekly, Week 7, Episode 7, how intelligently they made that move. But gotta wait for that video. Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. This was the co-main event. This was for the interim featherweight title. And Yair Rodriguez, after a hard-fought first round, he got the win done by the end of the second round. The first round was very, very crazy. Very impressive first round. I had Josh Emmett winning the first round, honestly, which was crazy to me how Josh Emmett was going to win any rounds. I didn't expect that. You know, maybe one, you know, but a close one. I don't know. But Yair Rodriguez, he got it done, and he got it done in a very impressive way. Josh Emmett had never been submitted in his UFC career, and well, Yair Rodriguez kind of broke that record, that unsubmittable record. And I had Rodriguez winning by a 4th round TKO, but that's clearly not what happened because he got a submission in the second round. He was able to get it done earlier. He found the opening for the armbar, then the triangle, and then that was it. You know, El Pantera is now the number 1 featherweight contender. He is the interim title holder, so he kind of has to be number 1. Still think Max Holloway should be number 1. That's why I was kind of, you know, skeptical about this whole interim title thing. But it is what it is. We'll see how Yair Rodriguez does against Volkanovski in their title fight, in their unification bout. The main event. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Lightweight title bout, champion versus champion, pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2. And yeah, this fight carried this entire card. The rest of the card, you know, the prelims were very weak. You know, they had a couple good guys here and there, a couple guys that I was very interested in watching. The main card was not super stacked like your average fan, average watcher, not like, the avid watchers. But, this fight right here is just unmissable. You couldn't miss this fight. You could not skip this fight. And I already talked about it in my last video. Islam Makhachev got it done with a win by unanimous decision, is what I meant to say. Controversial in some people's eyes, fair in other people's eyes. I already talked about it in my last video. If you want to go ahead and see that, go check it out. Yeah, Makhachev stays the lightweight champion, but Volkanovski stays number 1 pound for pound. Now, what do I think of this card? Very fun card. I had a lot of fun watching this card. I think the main card carried this entire thing because this main card was so fun. I mean, incredible, this main card. I feel like the undercards, the early prelims kind of brought it down a bit because I'm counting the entire thing. But if we're talking about just the main card, I feel like I might have to give it a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, just kind of overall. But I made up a new scoring system for pay-per-view cards from now on. It's going to be out of 50 overall. So entertainment will have a maximum potential of 15 points. The fights will have 10 points maximum. Hype will have 5. Finishes 5. Name value 5. Reception by the fans and by the media 4. Moments throughout the card 3. And stakes 3 with a total of 50 points. And we'll factor it into percentages now. If I had to start with stakes out of 3, I have to give it 3. This is champion versus champion. Pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2. The stakes are there. There was also an interim title bout. The stakes are there. The main event carried the stakes for this entire card, and it's very hard to deny the 3 out of 3, 100% stakes there. For the moments, I'm going to have to give it a 1 out of 3. So 1 point out of a possible 3. That's because there weren't a lot of big moments throughout this card. If we look through the prelims, pretty much no moments there in the prelims. If we look at the main card, there was Jack Della Maddalena winning. That was a pretty big moment in front of Perth in his home crowd. Yair Rodriguez winning the interim title. That was a very good moment. Obviously, there was Islam Makhachev becoming pound for pound number 1, or at least that's what we all thought at the time. The fact that he didn't actually become pound for pound number 1 brings down the moments by a lot. I think the biggest moment throughout this card was probably Volkanovski yelling from his back. And yeah, moments 1 out of 3. Reception. The reception from fans from, how the card went. A lot of people like this card. I like this card. I think this card is very nice. But we're going to factor in, the robbery of the first fight and the popular belief. A lot of people believe that the last fight was a robbery as well. So I'm going to have to bring the reception down by 1. So it'll be a 3 out of 4. For name value is tricky because you have the last 2 fights were just, or the last 3 fights stacked with name value. For like average fans, casuals, stacked with name value. But if you look at the rest of the card, your average casual fan is not going to know any of these people. So that's why I'm just going to have to bring it down. And even myself, I didn't know a lot of these guys. Like, I didn't know who Blake Builder, Tukagov, or no, I did know Tukagov from Yoel Alvarez, kind of. I didn't know Blake Builder. I didn't know Luke Bonmi. I didn't know Jack Jenkins. I didn't know Francisco Prado. He was debuting, so it doesn't really count. I didn't know anybody from this fight. I didn't know Modestas Bukauskas. But other than that, I know a lot of the guys. But if you ask a lot of casuals, they don't know anybody beyond this point, Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. So for that, I have to give the name value 2.5 out of 5. For the finishes that there were, it's not about the card overall. It's about the finishes that there were. How good were they? I have to give it 4 out of 5. And a lot of that has to do with the main card. Yair Rodriguez's submission win was crazy. Jack Della Maddalena's submission win was crazy. Justin Tafa's win wild. A lot of the finishes, Josh Kulabau, comeback win. Clayton Rodriguez, flawless early win. Luke Bonmi, comeback win. And, the finishes on this card were very nice and were very intense. So I have to give it a 4 out of 5 for that. For hype, this card was not very hyped up. The only hype for this card were the first 2 fights. That's it. Let's be real here. The only hype for this card were the people on the poster. And that's not the best kind of hype. You want a good undercard as well. But other than that, the hype for the main event was crazy. And the hype for the co-main event was good as well. So that just carries everything else. The hype for all these other fights, not very big, to say the least. So because of that, I'm going to have to give the hype 3.5 out of 5. Now we're going to go into the fights. That goes into the output of the fighters, the intensity of the fight, the importance of the fight, the rewatchability of the fight, the greatness, the entertainment value, everything to do with the fights itself. How good were they? For the fights themselves, I gave it a very nice 7 out of 10. I think a lot of the fights were very nice. This is factoring in all the fights, not just the one that went to decisions. This is all the fights factored in. Main event was wild. Co-main event was wild. This fight, Jimmy Crute versus Menifield, wild. And the fights here they were all fairly entertaining. They were all watchable fights. They were not like snooze fest fights. Maybe for casuals they were snooze fest fights, but they were not boring fights. So because of that, and because of how they were very entertaining to watch, because of the rewatchability of fights such as Rodriguez, Emmett, and Crute, Menifield, not necessarily counting the 2-minute fights, 1-minute fights, because those are very rewatchable. They don't take a lot of time. And the rewatchability of Makhachev, Volkanovski, it's just, I have to give the fights overall 7 out of 10. Now, I have to go into the entertainment of this card. Out of 15 points, I'm giving it, and I have to think about this one, Still not really sure what to give it. I think I'll give it 11.5 out of 15. The entertainment for the main event, super nice. The entertainment for the entire main card was incredible. The entertainment for the entire main card was incredible. The entertainment for the prelims and the early prelims were not as good. They're not the best entertainment for, the most casual guy. I enjoyed myself watching these fights, but we got to talk about it from other people's perspectives, perspective overall. An MMA fan is going to enjoy watching, Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou. That's me, right? I'd enjoy watching that fight. I'd watch that fight, if I had to, I'd do it. But most average people on the street, they can't watch 2 minutes of that fight. And you just got to look at it from that kind of perspective, overall, universal perspective, entertainment. And for that, I'm giving it a good 11.5 out of 15. If I had to, out of 50, that puts the overall card at a 36.5 over 50, giving this card a 71%. I have it here 70%, but 71. So just trust me, 71% for this card. And that's good for me. A lot of people see that as like a C and, not good. But if you're like me, a C is very good. So, yeah, a 71% is still a good grade in my book. And this was a very good card. The main card was legendary. I loved this main card. And it was a very nice event in general. Perth was really cool. The crowd was great. The walkouts for the main event was great. And everything about this card was very nice. And super excited for UFC 285 that's coming up in March. A little bit less excited for UFC Vegas 69, but gonna be watching it anyway. Stay tuned for my predictions on that.